Hey there, everyone. My name is Ryan Schul. Welcome to my channel. So, in the narrative today, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I'm going to first of all turn the camera off because we have family visiting and things can get really chaotic really quickly. But I didn't want that to prevent me from dropping a couple new videos. I've got 6 or 7 ready to go, and the family's going to be here for a couple of weeks. So just going to make some compromises. I want to change the narrative today instead of teaching some kind of like lesson or doing some research or creating a project. I want to take a look at some things that I've worked on recently and just show you some ideas I had and explain, basically what the potential was, but none of these actually came to fruition. None of these actually became a reality. And I think that's fine too. In life, sometimes things don't turn out the way that we think that they will turn out, right? And that's okay. And there's a word for that. That's called life, right? And and I feel like sometimes we can learn more from our failures than from our successes. If we try to do something and you're successful, then did you learn anything from that? Probably not, right? Because you already knew what the outcome is going to be and you anticipated that and it worked out exactly the way you thought it would, right? But if you try to do some things and you fail and you learn from your mistakes, you're going to, develop a capability to adapt and to switch things up and to make modifications and to achieve your goals, hopefully, right? And sometimes maybe you never will. Sometimes you never will, right? But these are called failures, and I think it's a very poignant learning point. So here's a couple ideas I had that never really evolved into anything, but I think that they were interesting ideas. At least I did some testing, but nothing really came of it, right? So emotion-based video summarization. This is potentially an analytical facial expression plus audio tone in long videos to generate or show emotions. And the application could be therapy sessions, sports channels, vlogs. This is a video log or something like that. I think that would be kind of interesting. I tested some ideas, nothing really worked out. Self-healing self-healing code auto completion. This would be a combination of an LLM plus reinforcement learning to write and debug Python or SQL code and generate errors and feedback on those errors, like GitHub Copilot or Microsoft Copilot. And we again learn from our mistakes. I think that's very important, right? So end-to-end lip reading system, build a CNN, LSTM. This is long short-term memory model that converts silent video of a speaker into text just by reading a person's lips. I think that would be useful for surveillance, silent communication, or accessibility. Again, tested some ideas. Nothing really came of that. Cross-modal retrieval engine. This would be a search for photo using voice. And I have seen this, right? I have seen this on one of my friend's cell phones. It's pretty cool. You can just speak a search term and it will find all the videos or audio files that match that search term, okay? And so you can train models across images, text, audio embeddings, things like that. So it does work. I tried to recreate that. I couldn't do it. Maybe I'll circle back and switch back because I know that that's a real thing. I know that's a real thing. But when I took a stab at it, it just didn't work out. Real-time deepfake detection using biological signals. This is capable potentially of deepfake detection videos by analyzing unnatural microexpressions, blinking, pulses from skin tone, relevant for content moderation, maybe even a lie detector test that could probably be used for that. AI tutor that learns students' preferences. This would be reinforcement learning like LLMs to deliver content in different styles, visual, quiz-based, Socratic learning style, things like that. It would adapt over time like a personal coach. I thought of creating a voice cloned AI negotiator. Didn't really get a whole lot of traction with that. But I would imagine it would be like a custom fine-tuned agent trained on a person's past negotiation calls or chats, generate talking points, suggesting offers, and speaking with a cloned voice. I think that would be kind of cool to see that come to fruition. Dream to design generator. This would be a text or voice input describing the dream room. The outputs could be 3D layouts or a shopping list, things of this nature, right? This would use generative models like Stable Diffusion or Blender APIs. That would be kind of cool to see that. AI-powered investor deck builder, upload idea notes, auto-generates pitch decks with text images, market analysis, fine-tune GPT with DAL, Stable Diffusion, and financial templates. So I have seen something like that. There is a tool out there that will actually generate not necessarily PowerPoint decks, but something very similar to a PowerPoint deck just by typing in some basic commands or just speaking into a microphone that will generate that. So I know that's powerful. I know it's possible. And it's pretty powerful too. I've actually used that a couple of times. So that's kind of a cool use for AI and for analytics. So one more idea I had was multi-agent research lab to create a 2 to 5 autonomous agent with different skills, doing literature reviews, data analysis, modeling, Q&A sessions, research topics collaboratively, like auto GPT, but more specialized. So those are a few ideas. I will take you over to a notebook that I have that I actually did some research and tested some other ideas. I have testing, creating a signal alpha backtester. Let me turn that on. I have a few other ideas I was testing. Honestly, I'm not going to create these videos. I'll take you through very, very fast. I'm not going to share the code. I'm not going to create the video for this just because it really didn't turn out to the standard or the caliber that I was looking for. So everything that I do has to have a pretty high, you have to have a pretty high threshold of refinement and of professionalism and of acceptability to be made into a video, right? When I put my name behind these things, like it has to pass several tests, and none of these notebooks actually pass those tests. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay. Sometimes we test ideas and it works out. Sometimes we test ideas and it doesn't work out, right? But I think the most important thing is to try. If you don't even try, then you've already failed. If you try and fail, then you've tried and failed. That's all it is. But if you don't even try, then it's a guaranteed failure. So let me take you through a few notebooks and just show you some ideas I had that I tested. And yeah, again, it didn't really turn out the way that I wanted it to, but that's fine, right? That's called life, right? So this thing is starting up, I guess. Kind of slow here. Let me see if I can refresh it. The computer's slow and old too, and it does give me a lot of issues and headaches and anxiety just using this laptop. This is what is this thing? A T14, ThinkPad 14. Solid state drive. You would think the performance would be a little bit better, but it just isn't. So that is, talk about failure, right? That's something I didn't expect. I thought it would just load. I thought this would load. I thought that one would load. I think it's doing it very slow. Because there's no reason this would not load. Maybe the best way to proceed is just to go through these pretty quick. Again, I'm not going to share the code. I'll just take you through a couple thoughts and ideas I had. I'll shut down each one. I think it's just too much for the system. It just can't handle the demand, even though the demand is pretty light. So the narrative here is creating a signal alpha backtester. I want to create signals for insider, buy pressure, and sell pressure, featuring size, consensus, sensory, weighting, things like that, portfolio information, and you enter your positions for the next market open and avoid look-ahead bias, right? This is when you create a bias and you look into the future, you already know what's going to happen, and you do that thing subconsciously, right? Or somehow incoherently, right? But that's not going to improve your trading performance. It just leads to a look-ahead bias. So here's some code I put together, just pulling down some files from the SEC, looking at different quarters, right? Unpacking the zip file, right? And retrieving the data within that. So basically just fetching data, doing some analysis to create alpha signals, and then back testing these ideas, right? So I got down here, I got the data, I got some filing dates, some information on these SEC filings, and again, parsing through these files, trying to extract information that's useful, looking for CEOs, CFOs, COOs, the president, director, 10% shareholders, things like that, right? So trying to get more information about these insiders. So I got up to the point where I could get the ticker, filing date, trade date, insider names, the roles that they serve, text code, shares, price, value, derivative flags, right? And I think this definitely has some potential to be an alpha signal generation tool. But as I got into it more and more, it really wasn't producing like the real kind of performance that I was looking for. So we have here a portfolio annual return, 14%, S&P return or SPY return, right? What is this? Let me look at this thing over here. Give me a second. Give me a sec here. Look this up. Oh yeah, so SPY is S&P. Wait, so here. Yeah, I have this condition. It's so hard to talk. It started like 10 years ago. It's just constant congestion. I can't get uncongested for some reason. I don't know. Many years ago, when I was young, never had any issues. I guess when you get older, there's just consequences for age, right? So anyways, just to summarize this thing, portfolio achieved a 14% return. The S&P 500, that's what we're looking at here, got a 22% return. So there's really no point in doing this kind of strategy, right? Like it's underperforming the market. Why would you engage in this kind of strategy? It doesn't make sense, right? So that one was off the table pretty quick. So this one, I was looking at financial service trading bot. So the idea is regulatory duty and fine avoidance, right? Compliance mandates are guaranteed. It builds reputation and client trust. Financial risk controls, right? That's great. Alpha execution quality, so above average returns, right? Speed versus human. The machine is always going to be faster. Evidence and auditability, scalability, coverage, adaptability to new tactics, operational efficiency, competitive edge, right? So these are all the pros. Really, not too many cons to creating a financial service surveillance bot. Right, here's my code. So I'm going through looking for orders, order sizes, buys versus sells, making this comparison. And I got some alerts, some layering over here, looking for kind of like weird activity or some kind of intrusion detection, things like this, right? So I think this might have potential, but it just never got off the ground. It never got legs, right? So I shut that down. Here I am looking at how building a multi-agent research lab using Python. So I'm using my Open API key and ChatGPT. This is the GPT-4 model. So I put in a quick query right here, summarize recent research on Alzheimer's prediction using AI. Okay, so this is what ChatGPT came back with. So 5 talking points about Alzheimer's, right? So that's kind of cool. I have several videos on my channel now. I don't know the actual numbers, 15 to 20, using ChatGPT and similar RAG systems and different GPT models. So I thought this could be a potential use case. It didn't really turn out to be that helpful, and it kind of overlapped with other things I already have on the channel. So I don't want to duplicate and replicate things. So I kind of left that alone pretty quickly. So in this case, I'm looking at investment trading execution optimization. So I have several videos on my channel about optimization. I think that's a fantastic mathematical strategy, right? I've talked about this with many people. A lot of people don't either understand it or don't agree with my point of view, but I think it's phenomenal. I think this is a great mathematical tool that more people should be using. I think what happens is people don't comprehend the benefits and then they just lose interest very quickly. So anyways, optimization is a good friend to have. It's a good tool to have in your tool chest. So here I'm pulling in historical information for Apple. I'm looking at different trade dates. So I've got the info in here. I'm looking at log returns, volatility, spreads, order size, and slippage. Tested the R squared of the model. So this is regression. R squared is 0.999, so very high R squared. So it does exactly what you would want it to do, and it's very highly accurate in terms of the predictions that this regression model can make. So pretty pumped about the outcome here. Then they moved into reinforcement learning for different types of execution. Move down here. Here's the RL learner, right? So reinforcement learning, we have rollouts, timestamps. This is the model doing all its learning, and it's showing you its learning capabilities, its learning rate, right? Is it learning better and better, faster and faster, or is it not able to learn and make predictions into the future, right? That's the signal that was generated, or it's not signal, but maybe evidence. You could call this evidence that the RL learner is doing what it's supposed to do. So I think that's pretty cool. I have some things in my notes down here, and here's the actual slippage over time based on the RL execution, right? So I think it kind of learns. I think it kind of like does some cool stuff, but is it really doing anything mind-blowing or earth-shattering? And do I really want to create a video specifically about this? No, not really. So I kind of that's fine. Leave that. I kind of put that one on the back burner too. That really didn't jive well with me. So I did come up with this idea fairly recently, pre-IPO valuation estimator using comparable companies. So I thought this would be very, very interesting kind of concept to research. I got along pretty far. The data turned out to be not fantastic, and if it's garbage in, it's garbage out, right? I had a lot of nans and missing numbers in the in the data set, so I ended up not being able to get too far with this one. But I think this would be pretty cool if you get historical data, right? And you know what IPOs were in the past, and you know what the earnings were, you know what the net income was, you know what the gross income was, you know what the operating cost was, you know the key players, the executive team, right? The directors behind this company, and you know how successful the company was long term, right? Was it up maybe 50% after the IPO? Was it down 50% after the IPO, right? And understand just the mechanics of this company or of this enterprise. I think you could easily make forecasts into the future about pre-IPOs and price those very accurately and understand how they're going to perform after the IPO. That was the inspiration for this, right? But I was missing so much data and so much information. I couldn't really do an accurate analysis on this, just because if you have a lot of nans and missing numbers and the data is just fundamentally not there, then it's very hard to find the total value for the company. It's very hard to find a fair, accurate IPO price. It's very hard to understand where the company is going to be 6 months from now and 12 months from now and a few years from now, because just so much data was just missing. If you feed that into the model, it can't make accurate predictions into the future. There's just too many unknowns, right? So I did make some progress and got some sort of, not satisfaction, some kind of completion, I guess, or closure. I got some closure over here, and it kind of did work out. But again, like, I don't know, I just wasn't super happy with the outcome here because of the missing data. Like, if the data was complete and the data set was refined and everything was backfilled correctly, I think you can price an IPO very accurately, and I think you can understand how that company is going to perform into the future, because you know historically what other similar companies did. You know other historical similar IPO prices, other historical successes, and you can predict into the future what is going to happen, right? History has a tendency to repeat itself. I'm sure you've heard that before. And machine learning and data science will tease out those nuances, those relationships, right? And make those predictions into the future. But you have to have the data, right? If the data is just fundamentally missing, then you're kind of dead in the water, right? So here, the narrative here was trade execution optimizer. So I started to consider, okay, if we're a trading company, how do we optimize trades? How do we do trades in the most mathematically efficient way possible, right? So I started to do some research here, came up with a few ideas, looking at different metrics over here. PD, this is probability of default. This was a default loan amount, loss given default, exposure at default, right? And looking at different risk management metrics. And this is the result they came up with. So I thought this was kind of cool, but then I started to think, what is the use case for this? There's probably a handful of firms in Midtown Manhattan, maybe downtown in the financial district, that can actually use this kind of report, or this kind of tool, or this kind of model, whatever you want to call it. But it's so finite and it's so small. Like, how many people are actually going to benefit from this kind of research? It's tiny. It's a very, very, very small universe. So I kind of gave up on this one. I think if I can solve problems and help 1 million people, then I would be much more motivated to undertake these activities. If it solves problems for 10 people, I'm not super motivated to do that kind of thing, right? The population base is just so small. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for me to invest my time in that. So here I'm looking at underwriting simulation using synthetic applicant data. So the data that I have was not real data. I had to make this up because I don't have underwriting data. This would be something that an insurance company has, or some kind of business that does underwriting, right? Usually insurance companies or some kind of underwriting entity. So I had to create my own data. It kind of turned out okay. And I did make some headway over here. Again, looking at probability of default, loss given default, actual defaults, loss if default, cost of funds, things like this. So kind of worked out, but it wasn't really popping for me and just jumping off the page. So I eventually kind of just withheld this as a video. I could have made this into a video pretty easy, but again, it kind of overlaps with a lot of things I already have on my channel. So I'm not going to duplicate and replicate things. Let me close that down. So one more thing that I tried and failed at is using historical IPOs, again, like I discussed a few minutes ago, to predict the price for current pre-IPO. So I started getting data. I went to this website. This has some pretty cool stuff on it. I'll show you right now. I think this concept would be fantastic if you could get the data. So we have recent IPOs, news. These are older IPOs. If you go back to 2025, 2024, here's older IPOs. This one I think just came out yesterday. Yeah, today is August 20th, 2025. This one IPO'd yesterday. I was looking at this one a couple days ago. NUTR YMT, Umatin Inc. So here's the details. EPS negative. That's pretty common for these IPOs, right? They haven't been around that long and it's not profitable. Net income negative. That's pretty common. You see that a lot. You don't have the PE ratio. There's no earnings, right? You can't calculate earnings with no earnings. Forward PE, again, can't do it. Dividend, ex-dividend date. That's not paying dividends. It's a brand new IPO. You have some basic financial information over here. Well, actual financial information. I say basic. I meant actual, but so I think this is okay. It's not too much missing. This is missing. This is missing. Gain. There's no gains. This is all missing. So it's useless. This is missing over here. This is useless. This is useless. But if you just look at the TTM column, trailing 12 months, you do have some good information filled in here. So I think this could be kind of useful. And I don't know if I've totally given up on this concept. But again, I think this would be kind of interesting, just to collect this information from historical IPOs, right, and try to predict into the future what the next pre-IPO should be priced at in terms of, let me go over here. Where's this? Recent IPO stats. I was looking at what's on board. These are all recent, so these have IPO'd. Oh, IPO calendar, okay, so this is up and coming, August 20th, so that's today. This is IPOing today. If you found a company with very similar financials, okay, the revenue is 1.8 million. These are all in millions. If you put this into raw numbers, 1.8 million. Yeah, 1.8 mil. Almost looks like 1.8 bill. Let me go back here. Yeah, 1.8 billion. Okay. So I put this in millions. 1,883 million is 1.8 billion, right? So anyway, so you have these numbers. If you have a company that has performed similar in terms of the revenue, gross profit, operating income, free cash flow, EBITDA, things like that, right? And this is going to IPO today, apparently. And you look at some of the statistics over here, market cap, enterprise value, okay? And you know historically what other companies were that were similar to this. You could either do a regression analysis, which might work, although I think maybe something like KNN, nearest neighbors, might work even better in terms of predicting how this company is going to perform, right? Or look at the pre-IPO company and then find nearest neighbors and say, historically, these are the top three companies that are most similar to this pre-IPO firm that we're looking at. And this is how these companies have performed post-IPO, 6 months after, 12 months after, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years after the IPO. This is how these companies have performed, and their metrics are similar to your pre-IPO. I think that could be very valuable, right? But you'd have to get the data, you'd have to do a lot of analysis, understand the management team, things like that. So I think this is doable. Right now, I haven't taken this to completion. Maybe I'll swing back and take another look at this again. I did scrape the data. I did get the TTMs, right? And I did start to do the nearest neighbor analysis down here, and it came up with this being similar and this company being similar to this current IPO that I input. And these are the inputs, right? I'm capturing the input from the user. So 820 million positive, 726 million positive. The operating income is negative 850 million, and net income is negative 700 million. But I have to capture more data points. 4 is not a whole lot. It's kind of small. And when I look closely, the nearest neighbor model recommended 2 companies that weren't even that close to the actual target company. If you assume this is the target, right? This is the pre-IPO target, and these are the recommended companies that are most similar to the target. When I did some research, these weren't that similar. So the KNN has to be fine-tuned, or the system has to be refined to the extent that, you know, the recommendations from the nearest neighbor model actually match what you would expect. These were kind of like random things that just came up, and I'm not sure why. I didn't really dig in that much. The data was a little bit sketchy, and I kind of just lost interest. I think if you had good, solid data, I think you could knock this out of the park in one day. I think the analysis could be done in a day. But the data was a little sketch, and like, I don't even know this website. I just found it a couple of days ago. I can't validate like how accurate is this IPO data, and I'm not that close to IPOs. Like I know it is. I did this kind of work years and years and years ago, but not recently. So kind of forgot some of that knowledge that I gained a long time ago. So I'm not sure if the whole concept is even valid, or is it just like a waste of time and just completely nothing but silliness. So I couldn't really tell, and eventually just go. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up here. So those are a bunch of ideas I tested. Put those in the back burner for now. I don't think I'm going to take it any further. I think the approach was okay. It was pretty solid. I think the analysis was pretty solid, but the outcome just wasn't what I was hoping for. So I never published these into actual videos. Okay, so the projects that I tried to do and failed. And I think I'm going to post some photos, really in the photos, videos I was talking about. If you want some of these things, you can post a comment in the comment section. I can send this to you if you want some asking things. I'm doing it here. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you wanted the code for this and you want to do your own pre-IPO analysis, I don't mind sharing the code with you. I'll give that to you. But for my purposes, I don't think I'm going to take this any further than what it is right now. Yeah, that's it. So that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap the video here. Thanks for tuning in. As always, hopefully this was instructional and informative and enlightening too. I try to make all the videos somewhat enlightening, and try to answer the topic that I addressed at the beginning. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon when I post the next video. Goodbye.